Welcome inside the parlor for the second installment of a series I recorded during my last visit to Birmingham, where I talk to individuals who I consider to be all-time influential villains. This series would not have been possible without the incredible support of the Holy Trinity Show's presenting sponsor, 24/7 Services, and its Villa Mad managing director, Paul Handsaker. Paul was there in Rotterdam in '82 with his dad Ron and family, watching Villa lift the European Cup, and to this day he's still very friendly with many of the players from that team, to the point where he was able to actually pick up the phone and say, "Hey, what are you doing next week?" When Paul and the 24/7 Services team aren't supporting the Villa or on a reactive job where they're either repairing or replacing an entire roof, or they're not doing a dramatic 2-week remodel of an entire business like Alex's barbershop in the royal town of Sutton Coldfield, why, they might just be nearby, watching a match, having a pint, playing some pool, having a chat at the Sutton Sports and Social Club. What a perfect backdrop for this series. I'm convinced that the conversations are always better when you're cozy and comfortable. And Reese and Tom would agree from Studio 46 because they had to shoot this series. It's the perfect place. If you want to talk about Villa's glorious past or look forward to the exciting season ahead, why not try the Sutton Sports and Social Club next time? A great place for private parties and functions as well. You might not even be fully familiar with today's guest, who was arranged and chaperoned by my friend Gerry O'Halloran, who also helped me find some photos after the fact, for which I'm very grateful. But after a very credible career, which included playing for one of the most iconic figures in the history of English football, this influential villain turned to physiotherapy. And in his era, the physio was not just responsible for treating injuries or helping players prevent or recover from injuries, but the physio was often the de facto assistant coach, at times player psychologist, and even team dad. He spent 18 years at Aston Villa and famously made it his mission to ensure that God was ready to play week in and week out. Here's what Brian Little had to say about his former physio, Jim Walker.
Jim was incredible. Jim was like, a massive father figure who looked after him. Paul really didn't even eat with the players before a game. You know, he was that nervous or built up and worried about the game. And so many things that Jim kept him on the right tracks with.
Jim turned 77 this year, and I find it very revealing about the man that even to this day, years after his retirement, he still values and respects the relationships he forged in those footballing inner sanctums, choosing confidentiality and discretion over gossip and potentially embarrassing or compromising revelations. They just don't make them like this anymore. I hope you enjoy my chat with a man I called Gentleman Jim Walker, because that's what he is, along with being a true footballing man and romantic. And I started our conversation by asking why, even now, does he think that the ex-pros with whom he worked still are so happy, clambering over each other to see him and say hello?
I don't know, really. I think perhaps because in the later years with Paul McGrath, it was I looked after Paul, really, and we had some good times together. So I think because he was such a good footballer, that the fans appreciated him playing, really, because I was in the treatment room at Villa and at the training ground, and I got a message, could I go and see the manager? And it was Graham Taylor, and he said, "Oh, come in, Jim, I've got something to tell you, that Paul McGrath has just failed his medical at Tottenham and he's coming here, and I don't want him to fail his medical here." So I said, fine. So that was it, you know. So I got the doctor and explained to the doctor, whatever we do, or whatever you know, we're going to sign Paul McGrath.
Would he have passed his medical?
Yeah, flying colours. Because at the time I was able to speak to the manager at Man U, and he used to tell me how, you know, when I'd see him and said, how have you managed to get Paul playing every single week, you know? Because he didn't miss many games. And he actually, when he finished playing, he was actually 38 years of age at Sheffield United, yeah, so...
We're going to talk more about Paul McGrath later. How's that for a tease? But first of all, you and I share something in common. In fact, a couple of things in common. First of all, we have the exact same birthday, June 10th.
Wow.
We're also program collectors, which we'll get into a little bit later. Let's go back to the earlier birthdays, maybe the single digits, early teens. Did you always want to be a footballer? And was there a point where you sort of looked around and went, I'm actually pretty good. I think I could do this for a living.
Yeah, no, I never thought that. I never thought I was pretty good. I could do it for a living, but I would have loved to have been either a footballer or I was actually, as a 16-year-old, I was better at cricket than football. But I couldn't get to Lancashire because that was the nearest county, because there was no transport for me, really. So just get on with things, really, and hope something turns up. You never think you're going to be a footballer, because I didn't play in the school team at football, and I was hopeless I went to this grammar school, and you know, I've got to apologise to all the teachers now, and what, you know, to put up with me was, I don't know how they managed it. I actually played in every position bar goalkeeper in my career, so yeah. I was wide left and inside left, centre forward, and I played in all those positions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you did become a pro footballer, and as fate would have it, who would come calling and say, Jim, I'll have you? None other than Brian Clough and Peter Taylor.
In those days, I'm sure it's the same now, they have scouts, and they scout local, and then if they see somebody that's a wee bit different, then they'll, and they're working for certain teams, and like, I did go to Man City, but that didn't work out, and I remember playing local football and Sunday League football, and then I got a trial at Northwich, where I lived. The ground was a mile from the home, and they asked me if I wanted to come down and train. So I went down and trained with them pre-season, and then the first game of the season was a game at Mosley in the league. I didn't travel or anything then, and then the following week we were playing Winsford, which was a local derby, and that's where I went to school. And for some reason, I don't know why or how, but they picked me to play in the team, and I never looked back from that. I signed for Northwich in August, then I signed for Derby in January. So I was at Northwich for 4 or 5 months, and I seemed to score a goal every game. I don't know how, but when you look and you think, dear man.
And did you already know, like, Brian Clough's reputation was already starting to build, but did you know of?
No, well, he was known for his goal scoring. He played for England, so you followed, you knew he played for England, and it was a month's trial I had. The first game was against Aston Villa reserves, and we beat them 5-1, I think it was. And so they kept me they gave me a month's trial. And then at the end of that month, what happened, the second game I played, and I got injured. So I didn't play again that month. So they said, look, this is now February, we'll take you till the end of the season. So if you want to come and sign for us. So my dad came with me. My dad was Scottish and loved his football. He was a Rangers supporter. And he was a very quiet man, for particularly being a Scottish person as well. And he came with me to sign my contract with Brian Clough. And I remember when we got there, we went into the office, Brian Clough's office, and he could be really nice for it and make you feel good, really. And so we went through the contract. They're going to give me a 2-year contract, and it was £30 a week. I agreed to that, obviously. I was earning, as a dial writer at the time. I was earning half that money, so it was a big jump, really. But something really surprised me when I signed, and it was my dad, really. The three of us were in the office at Derby, and as soon as I'd finished signing, Brian Clough says to me, right, now your first job is to get your hair cut. Because he was keen on people with having the hair cut. So, surprisingly, my dad, who wouldn't say anything really, but he said, Mr. Clough, George Best has got long hair. And Brian Clough said to my dad, Mr. Walker, when your son can play like George Best, you can have his hair like George Best. Which was really funny. So I signed in for...
And then promptly had a trip to the barber.
That's right, yeah. Yeah.
I went through an intensive Brian Clough obsession, and I read his autobiography, and so I do want to get into it a little bit. You mentioned there that he could be a really nice man.
He could make you feel
really good
footballer in England.
Yeah. But did you like him as a person?
Yeah. Yeah. I think he, when you think you've come from Sunday League football to play for Derby County, he must have, he was clever enough to know that there's going to be times when it's not going to be right for you. After the January and that season, I made my debut on the last day of the season against Blackpool. And the Blackpool fullback, I was playing wide left. The Blackpool fullback was Jimmy Armfield. He was in the World Cup squad that had won the World Cup 2 years earlier. I used to see him after games at times because he became, when he retired as a footballer, he used to write in the papers and go to games. And I always said to him, remember when we played? And I never had a kick. He said, I remember. Yeah, so he was good. He was a good player, Jimmy Armfield.
Could Brian Clough do without Peter Taylor and have had the success during that time? Because you knew both of them well. But
yeah, I mean, Peter Taylor was good, and he was the person that got me to Derby. He was really good at his job. They worked together really well. Sometimes people have said that Peter Taylor was the
brains?
The brains, but no. Brian Clough was absolutely amazing, yeah.
What was his key to success? What was it?
He looked after his players, really. The stories I can tell in the early days, we were playing Barnsley reserves, and he went to the match, and we won 2-0, and I'd scored both the goals. And people had been saying, look, you've been here 3 or 4 months now, you've got an opportunity to make your debut. So I scored these 2 goals, and the ball had been played in the channel, and I've run after it. And I pushed the defender over, and the refs gave a free kick, which was right. They took the free kick, and then they blew for full time. So I'm going off the pitch and thinking, well, I've scored a couple of goals. All the lads are saying, you better play on, make your debut Saturday. So I went in, and Brian Clough always stood at the door. And when I walked past him, he wouldn't say well done unless you had done well. And he never said anything to me. I thought, all right. Into the bath, get your bath, and he's still not said anything to me. And then as I'm putting my clothes on and brushing my hair, ready to go, he said, hey, you, do not push people in the back unnecessarily, giving away stupid fouls. And I thought, well, we've won 2-0. It was in the last minute. Everyone thinks now I think I'm going to make my debut on Saturday. Train with the first team on the Thursday and Friday. And when we got back, we trained a mile away from the ground. And when we got back to the ground, the team sheet would be up. So when I got back to the ground, I looked at the team sheet and I wasn't in the first team. I looked in the reserves and I wasn't in the reserves. And I looked at the third team, number 11, Jim Walker. I thought, what's happened there then? So I thought, well, what do we do now? I played in the third team, and the following week I trained with the first team again, and then on the Friday I was going to make my debut. The team sheets went up and I looked in the third team. I wasn't in that second team now. So that was me going to make my debut. And as I'm going out, he'd said to me all the best and things like, and he said to me as I'm walking out of the dressing room, he said to me, good luck. Do not push people in the back unless they're giving away stupid foul. I didn't play very well, but it was the last game of the season, so I can honestly say I can't remember in the 7 years I was there and played for 15 years, I never pushed anybody again. And that's how how it taught you the game, really.
I know that you did, of course, score in that 71-72 season a pretty important goal against Crystal Palace.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
First of all, take us through the goal.
Yeah, I do remember the goal. But just before the goal, Archie Gemmell had missed a penalty.
Ah.
And then I scored this goal, and I wasn't even that far away. I was probably 2 yards from the goal line. So I couldn't miss. I don't know what I was doing there, really. But yeah, we ended up winning 1-0. So that helped, I think, didn't it?
You already sounded like you had a good relationship with Cloughie. You score that goal, though. I mean, he wanted so badly to, get past Leeds and be first. Did that change the relationship even for the better after that goal, or did that even matter to Cloughie?
No, that was just another week now, and another month. If you did your best, he would do anything for you, and he could make you feel an international, But if you were the other way, he could really let you know what he When I made my debut at Blackpool, I remember the team sheet going up, and like I say, number 11, Jim Walker. So I thought, well, what do I do? My mum and dad wanted to come, but my girlfriend, who was eventually became my wife, she wanted to come and watch. And you only got 2 tickets. So I was asking the lads, and they said, just go and see him, he'll give you another ticket. Because they sometimes didn't need both tickets, and they'd give you one. So I knocked on his door, opened, he wasn't there. That's how it used to be. So he said, come in. So I opened the door and went, and he said, right, what do you want? I said, boss, my girlfriend would like to come to the game, and is there any chance of another ticket? My mum and dad are coming. And he said, there's absolutely no chance of another ticket. If your mum and dad won't pay to watch you, what chance have we got? So that was it. But what I didn't know, on the Thursday, he phoned my mum and dad up and said, Jim's going to make his debut on Saturday. He doesn't know yet, so don't tell him.
Oh.
And I've got 2 tickets in the best seats in the ground for you. So he already had it sorted.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the other side of him, really. How many people would do that now?
Obviously, that goal, you won the title, and incredibly, again, one of 16 players to you play in the shirt, and yet you didn't get a winner's medal until very recently.
Yeah, recently.
Why?
In those days, there was only so many medals, and at the time, I'd only played 6 games anyway, so I didn't feel I deserved a medal, even scoring a goal, really. Got one eventually, yeah.
I'm dying to know, because I'm sure you've watched it, but what did you make of the Damned United and Michael Sheen's portrayal of Brian? Did you?
Yeah. What was disappointing for me, Brian Clough didn't swear very much, and in that programme it was all swearing, wasn't it? But he didn't often swear. He didn't need to, really.
Yeah.
He just need to raise his voice to you. He was just unique, really, in the way he knew everything about you, knew everything about your family, almost knew what coat you'd have on when he came to the... He knew everything, and, he was a top-class manager, and, from there we went into the European Cup, didn't we?
Yeah. Do you remember any good celebration stories from that title? Like, did you live it up a little bit after that first one?
We did, really. It was nothing like it is today where, if you scored a goal, you weren't lying on the floor with 10 people on top of it. It was just to shake hands and, how did you miss that other one?
Yeah. And the baseball ground back then was not quite like modern stadia either.
No.
Did you enjoy playing there, though?
Yeah, it wasn't so much the stadium, it was a pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember Arsenal coming and Tottenham, and I wasn't playing in the games. I think I probably would have been sub. The Arsenal team turn up, and they go in the dressing room, and then they go. All players used to go and walk on the pitch, but you couldn't walk on the baseball ground this day because it was so muddy. And we'd won the game before we even kicked off. Tottenham the same. It was just muddy, and I think both games we won 5-0 or something like that.
I am very curious about skipping ahead to Aston Villa and also being a physio. Like, when did this come into your mind? It's not normal or usual that a player goes into that room.
Right. Yeah.
So how did you get into it? What made you want to do it?
Well, I had quite a few injuries while I was playing football, and I started to get interested in injuries. And when I finished playing at Chester, it was my last club, I thought, I got the opportunity to go and become a physio, really. So that's what I did, and it was good.
Did you have to take some kind of schooling or course?
To do all the. I've got my certificate.
Because, in that day, and what's incredible to me is the staff was so small that the term physio was one thing, but what you actually did was probably a whole lot more.
Yeah, you did a lot more, yeah.
I mean, would you fare even into a bit of a coaching and technical too?
Because you've played football for 15 years, you don't forget, and you don't forget what Brian Clough used to say to you.
Right.
So, and the managers I worked for were all good, Graham Taylor took me there, and when I finished playing with an injury, but I was 34, and I thought, well, what do we do now? And I got a phone call from Dave Mackay, who I played with at Derby, and he was out in Kuwait, and he said, "What are you doing now? What are you going to start doing?" I said, "Well, I'm not sure yet." He said, "Well, you want to come out to Kuwait with me for a couple of years and see how you go coaching?" So that was good, really. I mean, it was away from home. The longest I was away from home was 12 weeks, but I was out there with Dave Mackay and Neil Martin, who was a top player with Coventry. After the second year, I realised I didn't want to be a coach. Almost qualified to be a physio, so I got qualified, and that was good going there. I enjoyed it there. Dave Mackay was a marvellous man, really.
You ultimately were responsible and loyal to the manager because he was the boss. But at the same time, you also, I'm sure, at times had to maybe even shield some things away from the manager. Yeah. Did you enjoy that part of it?
Yeah, you didn't shield some things, that you thought weren't over important, and in the other way, really. But because you'd played football for 15 years, and you played with some amazing footballers, you knew more or less what it was all about. And if they asked your opinion, which sometimes they did, then you'd give your honest opinion. Occasionally, I remember Ron Atkinson would not played very well at Norwich, and he turned to me and said, "Right, you sort them out." I didn't sort them out.
Well, you mentioned Ron, and you mentioned Graham Taylor. I mean, you've had others too. And you said you got on with all of them. But it is, just like any player, manager changes. Well, they want their own people, and yet you stayed on. So clearly they all had respect for you. But did you have it, was it tough, those transitional times in between, or?
No, not really, because I was confident with my ability as a physio, really, with the bonus of having played football. You could say to a player, "Look, you're going to be 6 weeks out with a hamstring injury." But what happened with injured players normally in those days, it was you'd have your treatment, go home, maybe come back in the afternoon and have your treatment. So, but when I was at Villa, I could remember the first 2 weeks, really. The players would come in, have the treatment at 9 o'clock or 8:30, 9 o'clock early, and then what they used to do was go home and sometimes come back in the afternoon. But what I did, the players couldn't go home. They would train with me in the gym. So even if they got a broken leg and they were in plaster, they can still cycle on a static bike with the other leg, can't they?
Right.
So whatever the injury was, they had to work. And, you know, obviously if they'd got a knee injury on the left leg, then you'd look after that. You wouldn't give them things that would make that worse. But so it would be single leg cycling on the bike, and then they'd go home, or think they're going home. They'd go and have their lunch and back at 2:00. And we did it all over again. And it was good to do that because I knew it was the right thing. It was a newish thing, really. And it meant that the players wouldn't take another 3 weeks to get right after being out for 6 weeks.
It's incredible how the profession has evolved to now.
Yeah.
What current technology or technique would you most have loved to help you during your time?
I was more than happy with the way it went for me, really.
Sure.
So if I was a physio, I'd know whether it was first, second, or third degree tear.
Right.
And if it was a first degree, it'd be out for 2 or 3 weeks. If it was a second degree, it'd be 6 weeks. Not even an argument. And if it was worse than that, it could go on for... So if you said on average, it's a 6-week job. If somebody came to you and said, here's £1 million if you can get him ready in 4 weeks, you can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
It's a 6-week job. But now it's slightly different with what you mentioned before, with the scans.
Yeah.
You've got an idea how bad it is, really.
You were the continuity in that dressing room with players, which probably helped them transition to a new manager. But boy, you must have seen some things. And you also had, I mean, during that time, it just feels like there were a lot of big personalities.
Yeah. Not one player or manager was Brian Clough or Dave Mackay.
Really?
With people, when you've worked with those people like that, they were special at the job. Everyone was a dream, really.
Really?
But there were obviously times when they didn't really want to train again in the afternoon, but they got used to that, really. I remember Andy Gray coming back to me because I'd got him back in the afternoon, and he wasn't happy. He said, I'm not coming back, but he did come back, to be fair. And we worked in the gym, as we'd worked in the morning, and he came up to me after and said, you know, I don't really want to say this, but I really enjoyed that this afternoon. It helped getting them fit, kept them fitter, kept them fit, really. And so that what you're hoping is, instead of it taking another 3 weeks when they're playing, a week might do it, you know.
So you mentioned the medical with Paul McGrath. Had you met him before, prior to him coming to Villa?
No, that was the meeting when Graham Taylor had called me in and said, he's just failed his medical, he's on his way, and you know, that was the first thing. And he had his medical and obviously passed it. And I don't remember the first sort of 2 or 3 months. He just got on with things, and then things started to go a little bit different, and he'd come and see me, and in the end, he used to train with me.
But you have maintained an incredible relationship, friendship.
Yeah.
What was it about that kept you so close, do you think?
Well, because I love football, and I love great players. I've got to put him down as a great player, yeah. The extra work I did for him, or with him, it was worthwhile.
Yeah, what was the secret to getting the most out of his knees then, from a technical standpoint?
I don't know. When he came, because I remember being told that he'd had 4 or 5 operations on his knee. So I thought, oh, okay. So they signed him, and the first time he came to me with his knee, he said, I'm struggling with my knee today. I said, let's, you know. So I had a look at him, and it was swollen. But we got round in the end, we got into a situation where he'd just trained with me, and the club were happy with that, because at the end of the day, he'd be there on Saturday at 3:00, you know.
Was he revered as a player by everybody, because he had everyman issues, and he wasn't in an everyman job where, you know, he was a professional footballer and he was playing in front of thousands of people every day. Is that why he is so appreciated, is that he is kind of the common guy who had this big profession?
Yeah, I just think he was an exceptional player. He was very quick. I don't know how it worked, really. It was amazing how it worked, because he missed the odd game, but not through injury.
Yeah.
Through
through
other little problems. And I bet he didn't miss more than 6 games all the time he was at Villa.
Wow.
Yeah.
You had, obviously, as I said, a lot of real great personalities in there, and you know, you were also one of the ones responsible for if somebody, for example, did go missing or all of a sudden wasn't around and was expected to be around. Oftentimes that was put on you.
Yeah.
Do you have any fond memories or not so fond memories?
Graham Taylor was an exceptional manager, and he did everything perfectly, really. He made my job easier by, you know, making sure the players were right, and the players got to know that if they were injured and weren't playing Saturday, they'd be in Sunday morning and Monday afternoon and Tuesday, and so they knew that you can't go wrong doing things like that, you know. But, you know, in the years when I played, if you had a hamstring, then you'd virtually have 6 months off. You go in and have your treatment and go home and come back and have your treatment, no exercise. And,
right.
So, and, you know, no matter how fit you are, if you get a problem that's going to be 12 days, then you've lost quite a lot of fitness in those 12 days.
Graham, I always admired partially because of his wit, you know, and I mean, I know Brian Clough, you mentioned, he's up there, but you know, of your managers, was there one that sort of had some of the best one-liners, or, you know, had some of that about them?
No, Graham was, he was perfect manager, really, as Brian Clough was. But sort of Ron Atkinson was slightly different. When he came to Villa, it was a month before he really spoke to me. He said, I'll come in the office and I'll have a word with you. I'd finished the treatments, and he phoned down and said, have you finished yet? Yeah, I'm on my way up. I went in to his room. He said, I've got to tell you 2 things I'm not keen on with football. Is a certain person that worked for the FA in those days. I'll not mention his name. And the other thing I don't like are physiotherapists. I said, oh, right. Yeah. He said, I think physio should stand at the door of the treatment room with a fag on and not let anybody in there, even if they're injured. Ron Atkinson has been the manager for 2 weeks. We're going up to play Shamrock Rovers for Paul McGrath, and then a full house at Shamrock because McGrath was playing. And an hour before the game, Paul came to me, said, Jim, I'm not going to be able to play today. I've had a drink, you see. So, right. So I now have got to tell Ron Atkinson, and he's only been a month, and I'm not spoken to him that much. So I said to Ron, look, there's a problem with Paul McGrath. He's not going to be able to play, really. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, he's had a drink, unfortunately, and had too many drinks. And he said, I'm the manager, you're the physio, he's playing, right? I said, well, yeah, fair enough. And okay, it's fair enough. So we've been playing 10 minutes, and there was a foul in the centre circle. Paul McGrath never took free kicks, but he's going to take this free kick. He put the ball down, walked back 10 yards to run and kick the ball, and then he walked back another 5 yards. So he's now 15 yards from the ball. And he's run up to the ball, kicked the floor and the ball went that far. And Ron said to me, "Get him on." Yeah. So that was the start of sort of keeping right. And he'd always tell me when he'd had a drink, really.
Yeah.
He didn't need to tell me because he knew anyway.
Yeah.
But that's how the situation went. And at the end of the day, if he was picked to play, he'd play, and he'd be A1, you know. I was quite confident with that.
How did you enjoy working for Brian Little?
He was the last manager to win a trophy, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in '96, yeah. I didn't often see him play because I was based up in the north, but he was an exceptional player that I remember. And obviously a good manager because, you know, he did well with the players he had, really. And at the time, you know, he was sort of, Paul was still training with me. And I think, to be fair, you know, he would want his own players now. And if he was going to train with me every day, you know, what's it going to be like for me as the manager to pick him, really?
Right.
I got a phone call from Derby, actually. It was the manager, and they asked me about Paul McGrath. He said, "Tell me about Paul McGrath, what do you think of him?" And I said, "Well, if you sign him, he'll be your best player." And they didn't sort of believe, but they did sign him, and they still talk about him as a legend at Derby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a better, or shall I say, worse excuse for missing a game than going down to London to get a nose job?
No, that's the because it was hard to get a day off when I was a physio. Hard for the players. It had to be. There were the odd one or two things where I don't know if I dare tell any of those stories, but I can remember that. But I remember one of the other players, and he came to see me. He said, "Could I have the weekend off?" He was injured. I said, "No, if you're injured, mate, you're in Saturday and Sunday." So he came back to see me. He said, "Look, I really need a couple of days off," because he wasn't going to be fit. I said, "Right, when you do come back, you're going to be afternoon and maybe even in the evening to catch up with." This was Paul Merson. 3 weeks later, I found out why he wanted the weekend off. He went to America on Concorde to watch the American football because he'd had a little bet on that. So he went there and flew Concorde there and Concorde back.
Did he win the bet?
And
Do
he
you
won
remember?
the bet.
Yes.
So I was quite pleased for him. Yeah.
Another big personality, you know. In fact, so many of those guys went on to be pundits. Merson, I always love Andy Townsend.
There's a lot of pundits, Villa.
Yeah.
From Villa, yeah. Andy's a smashing Villa, yeah.
Yeah.
Good player.
Well, Mark Delaney had an awful lot of cheek to go and court your daughter, Claire. I really hope that you did torture him.
I did, yeah. Before they got married, yeah. What happened, gone to work and come home, and my wife, we sat down and had a tea. And she said, "Look, I've got to say something to you." And I thought, well, wonder what's happened here, because she wasn't like that, you know. She said, "Mark Delaney's coming round tonight to take Claire out." And I said, "All right, okay, yeah." "When he comes, I don't want you saying things to him, you know." Made sure I was going to be the one opening the door when he rang the doorbell. So he rang the doorbell and I opened the door. I said, "Oh, Mark, everything all right, mate? You got a problem?" Because players would come round and if they got a problem. He said, "No, I've come to take Claire out." So I can't remember the remark. They've been married quite a while now.
Good son-in-law?
Exceptional, really. I mean, we play indoor bowls. And when we play against people in the club, I'm his partner. And when we actually play bowls, he's really top drawer, and I'm not so good, you know. So, I really enjoy the game. But he's a good lad. He's a good footballer. But I was disappointed for him, well, a year ago when Villa didn't renew his contract.
Yeah.
And he'd been there 22 years was it?
You must still feel connected to both Derby and Villa, but do you still follow Villa and do you still see what's going on? And
Yeah, I follow every team I've played. Villa mostly, I think. I like to know they're getting on. And, teams I played with, like Chester, were good. When I played for Chester, I can remember we played Newcastle in the FA Cup, 4th round. Newcastle were top of the 2nd division. And that points clear, that clear that they were going to get promotion. And this was January. And I remember them on the television on a Saturday lunchtime talking about who they thought would win the cup. And one or two said, we think Newcastle got a chance because they're playing 2nd division football, but they're good enough to be in the 1st division, and I think they've got a chance of winning the cup. We actually beat them. I think it was 2-0 at Newcastle as well. But we had a young centre forward who was a pretty good footballer. I don't know if you'll remember Ian Rush.
oh my goodness, you had Ian Rush as a teammate at Chester.
Centre forward.
Wow.
Centre forward, yeah. What a player he was, man.
Well, and what's interesting is, this is how small football is.
Yeah.
But I remember Paul McGrath used to play against Ian Rush all the time and would shut him down.
Yeah.
And Ian Rush would, and he said it would drive him nuts that Paul McGrath would come over and say, "Thank you, Mr. Rush," very polite.
Well, that's Paul. Paul, yeah. But Ian Rush was some player.
Yeah.
Even in training, he wouldn't give the ball away.
Yeah.
But he had a little trick in his bag. What Ian would do, he didn't really do it at Chester. He did it once or twice. If the goalkeeper had got the ball on the floor, he'd walk away, and all of a sudden he'd turn quick and go and put the goalie under pressure.
Yeah.
And sometimes it worked. So Ian Rush was as good as any player I played with, really.
I found it fascinating as we sort of graduate from football into some of the other work that you did, that you also helped a lot of pop stars and musicians with injuries.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure what kind of injuries pop stars and musicians get, but we'll talk about that. And that started with a phone call, did it?
Yeah, it was just somebody was a Villa fan that was in charge at the NEC. And if there was problems there, then he'd think, well, I'll get Jim Walker, he might do it for me. So it was good for me, really.
I bet.
Yeah.
Let me throw some names by you, and you tell us a story or an injury. But I mean, this was incredible to me. Sir Elton John,
Yeah.
you treated him.
Yeah. He didn't really need treatment at the time. So he wasn't one I'd seen much of, really. But yeah.
George Michael?
George Michael, yeah. Oh, that was a bit of a nightmare, that, because did his treatment and he was fine, nice man, and sorted him out what he needed to do and not do. And when I got home, I went to look and I'd left my watch in there. I'd taken it off to give him his treatment.
Yeah.
And well, there's no chance of getting it back, was there? And there's always little stories about it. I mean, Neil Diamond was one, and his son had hurt his knee, and would I be able to come and look at his knee? So I said, yeah, I'll come round. He was in the hotel, he had the whole of the top floor in the hotel. So I went and saw his son. His son was about 16, I think. And I said, when I'd finished looking at his knee, I said, no, he's going to be all right. I said a couple of weeks and he'll be fine. Don't worry, he's nothing at all to worry about. He said, all right, thank you very much. How much do I owe you? I said, no, I don't charge people for treatments. He said, would you like some tickets for the show then? I said, I've already bought tickets for the show. He said, all right. So he said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you some tickets. And he gave me 10 tickets. And I gave them to all the girls that worked at the training ground and the lads that, got nothing really, did they? So they were all, the 10 of them went to watch Neil Diamond. But what was funny as well was I was going with my wife, and a park the car in the car park and you walk into the NEC. And on the way, there's people selling programs for the show.
Yeah.
And walked about 100 yards and this lad's selling programs. And when he's turned around, it was his son that I'd treated. So I said, what are you doing? He said, oh, my dad makes me do this every time I come away. So he was selling programs that night, you know, that I was there. So that was unusual, wasn't it, really?
How about Cliff Richards? Did you treat Cliff?
Cliff Richard, yeah. Changed my views on Cliff Richard because I used to be a Jerry Lee Lewis fan. And not so much English singers, you know.
Yeah.
But he was, he was a real nice person. Yeah.
Did I miss anybody?
There was a few more in excess.
Michael Hutchins.
Michael Hutchins.
Yeah.
And there was a lad, the funny one was, I can't remember his name now, it's poor, isn't it? But he was a big Man United fan. He was top star at the time, number one. Dear me, what was his name? Might come to me. What he'd done before they go on stage that day, in the morning, they have a game of football and kick the ball about. And I got a call. He'd hurt himself playing in the football before the show. Could I go up and have a look? So I went and saw him, and he was fine. I said, "You'll be all right, mate. No problems at all." And he did the show, and then said, "Come and see me afterwards." And it was on a Wednesday, and on the Saturday we were playing Man United at Old Trafford, Villa. We get there and we sort of now getting changed, and door was open, and he walks past the changing room. He must have seen me, and he turned around and came back, and he came in and said, "Jim, how are you?" I said, "Yeah, fine. How are you doing?" Yeah. "Oh, it's great, my back, you know," or whatever it was, his injury. The lads couldn't believe it. And they said, "Well, you know," I said, "Oh, I don't just look after you footballers. It's..."
I would have thought Robbie Williams might have even been.
No, he lived not far from where I lived, yeah. Yeah, I did meet him as well.
You mentioned programs. You have one or two, I understand. Is this true?
About 5,000. Yeah, 5,000 programs.
So when did this start and why?
I was 9 years of age when I started to get programs, and the team I used to go with my dad to watch Witton Albion, and there's two teams in Northwich, there's Witton Albion and Northwich, and Witton Albion didn't have a programme, because in those days you had to have programmes later on, but Northwich would have a programme. So we used to go and watch Witton, and they didn't have programmes, and then we went to watch Northwich and Witton at Northwich, so he got a programme. And they just fascinated me, really. So I started saving them. And I used to go to Man City, and you'd end up buying 7 or 8 programmes, because there was lads at school that saved programmes, and you'd get the 7 or 8 programmes and then take them into school on the Monday morning and get your money back.
Is there one that is the most precious for you? Do you have any sign?
I've never really got them signed, and I look and I think, dear me, if people, when they do sign a programme, it's worth double then. But I really like the Scottish Cup ones. They're hard to get, and I've got quite a few of them. I've got the World Cup one, 1966. I could have got that signed by most of them, really, over the years, but it's something I didn't do, really.
In your career, I'm sure you obviously would have traveled quite a bit as well. Was there a favorite destination that you loved going to, or a country or a city that just completely blew you away when you went?
Yeah, I mean, the one that amazed me was Singapore. And I went in the days when they weren't such a clean country, and still enjoyed it. And then it'd be years later, I remember going back when Joseph Fenglos was the manager, and it was absolutely spotless, Singapore.
When you look back on all the games either you played in or that you were on the touchline for, is there one game or a couple of games that just pop into mind right away?
Unfortunately, there's lots of games you can't really talk about, because it would upset one or two people, I think. And So you have to be careful what you say. But I enjoyed most games, really. And I remember when I played the Crystal Palace one in particular, because I scored a goal from 2 yards out. But we won 1-0. And because I'd scored so many goals at Northwich, and now I've made my debut at Derby and it's the new season, we were playing Sheffield United, and another story with Brian Clough, really. And I've got the ball and I've gone past somebody and I'm 20 yards out from goal, and I've shot at goal and it's nearly gone over the stand. And I remember them saying to me, "You do not shoot from 20 yards out. You're not going to score from there," which stuck with me, not to shoot from 20 yards. But I did shoot from 20 yards when I scored my first goal against Bolton. At Bolton, yeah. We won that 2-0. We won the second division that year, yeah. So it was, that probably stuck in my mind because it was the first goal I'd scored in league football, really. I've spent over 45 years in football. I don't really know much other than football.
Jim, I'm privileged to be here and chat with you, to hear some of the stories. I know there'd probably be an awful lot more. Not every Villa fan gets to sit here like me and talk to you. So on behalf of all of them, I'd like to personally thank you for everything you've done for the club and for being an all-time influential Villan.
Villan, yeah. Well, thank you, and thank all the Villa fans as well when you see them.